All right, guys, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the top 10 things to do in Maine in the summertime. Normally, I do a video profiling a town, profiling a city, kind of talking about the pros and cons of living in that town or city, specifically more so in southern Maine. Talk about why you might want to move here, and kind of talk about the real estate market, the pros and cons, what's going on up here. But in this episode, I'm going to do things a little different. I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. I'm going to talk to you about why you want to visit Maine, maybe move to Maine, maybe you're thinking about maybe moving here, maybe you're thinking about moving somewhere from where you're at but not sure, and Maine might be on your radar or somewhere in that vicinity. So we're going to talk about the top 10 things to do in Maine in the summer from my perspective, a local who's lived here most of his life, was born and raised here. And if that's of interest to you guys, well, then sit back, grab some popcorn, maybe grab a pen and paper, because we're going to get after that right now. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. If you want to know everything there is to know about living in Maine, then I'd encourage you to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you can be the first to receive new content when I drop it, which is about on a weekly basis. I've been slowing down a little bit here in the summertime, trying to spend more time with my family and my friends. I have a lot of hobbies, so I'm trying to balance it all. Sometimes it's tough, but I try to make it the best. Guys, my name is Scott Thibeau. I'm a broker with eXp Realty, and we get calls, texts, emails all the time, my team and I, about what it's like to live in Maine. What's the weather like? What do you do here? Where do you live? What's the market like? So the purpose of this channel is really just to help educate you on what it's like to live in Maine. And again, as I said in this episode, we're going to talk about the top 10 things, in my perspective, you want to do in Maine at the very minimal. If you're visiting here, you're going to need about 10 days because you can't get it all in a day, maybe 11 if you want to take a little break. But we're going to talk about that. For me, interestingly enough, growing up in Maine, I loved growing up here. I had tons of kids in the neighborhood. I played sports all the time. And it wasn't until I got to high school that I started looking around and saying, wow, Maine is kind of like backwoods. Maine is kind of like pokey dunk. I need more. I want to go see the world. I had an opportunity to go to college. I said no. It wasn't on a full ride. I would have had to pay, but I was going to maybe try to play a sport up there, probably football. Just didn't interest me. So I joined the military, went into the Navy to see the world. Well, let me tell you something, guys. I saw the world. I traveled all over the globe. I saw probably half this world by the time I was 24. And a lot of it was beautiful and a lot of it was brutal. And what I found was living in the United States, first of all, is such a privilege that so many people today, because they haven't experienced other things, other ways of life, other cultures, they kind of take it for granted. Then when I came back to the States after being deployed to numerous countries in different parts of the world, I lived in other parts of this country for a little while, and I'm not putting it down other states. I mean, I lived in Virginia, I lived in North Carolina, I lived in South Carolina, I lived in Florida, I was in Arizona, I was in Maryland, I've traveled to Las Vegas, I've been to California, I've been to Texas. I haven't been to those upper kind of northern states like Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. I want to go visit those, but what I found in living in those other states was, man, I just kept on having this yearning to come back to Maine. Maybe because I'm an ocean guy. I love the beach. I love the ocean. There's something about it. And even though I don't go in the ocean every day, sometimes in the winter it's pretty cold. There's just something, if I can't be by the ocean, I don't know. I get a little stir crazy. It's just the ability to just drive 5-10 minutes, I'm on the ocean. That's a big help for me, but it's such a zen. But what I discovered and living in these other parts of the country in different states was, wow, Maine really has a lot to offer. So when I made a choice to move back here 10 years after I left, I felt pretty privileged, and I feel pretty honored today to not only be able to live in Maine, raise my family here. It is one of the safest states, if not the safest state in the country, and make a pretty good living. So all I've wanted to do ever since I came back was really to try to educate and give back to the communities that I grew up in, to the state of Maine, and that's the purpose. That's the purpose of this video, is just to educate you in the state. Maybe you want to move here someday. Maybe you're thinking about moving here. Maybe you don't even know how to move here. Well, that's what the purpose of this channel is. We're here to help you. If nothing else, come visit, try these 10 things, and see if you don't get hooked, because there's a lot of people that are moving here and the secret's out. It's not a secret anymore. Maine is a pretty awesome place to live. All in all, quality of life. So here I am. I'm your tour guide. You called me. You say, hey, Scott, what do I do in Maine? I'm coming up. I'm coming from somewhere in the country. I'm going to be there on Friday. I got 10 days, actually 11, because I'm going to get in a little early. But what do I do? What would you recommend I do while I'm in Maine? All right. So guys, these aren't in any order. I wrote them down here on this list, not on any order. But these are the things I think you're going to want to do. If you only have 10 days, these are the things you're going to want to do in Maine in 10 days. Now, I'm going to try to say that the weather's going to be pretty nice. You're up in August. It's August now. You're going to be up in August. The weather's, high 70s, low 80s, low humidity. It's bright, beautiful, sunshiny, blue skies. That's typically how our Maine summers have been. But you're up here in August. You got 10 days. Here are the top 10 things I think you should do in Maine. Again, not in any order. But number one, if it was me and I'm in Maine, I'm going to want to drive to Portland, Maine. I'm going to want to park my car for the day, probably in a parking garage on Commercial Street. And depending on which one I choose is going to depend on what I do the rest of the day. But I'm going to say the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to walk down to Casco Bay ferry lines, and you're going to want to get a ticket for yourself, for your family. Maybe you came alone, maybe you brought a significant other, maybe you brought some friends. You're all going to want to get a ticket, and you're going to want to get a ticket on one of two options. You're either going to want to get a ticket on the Mailboat Cruise, and I'll explain what the Mailboat Cruise is in a minute, or you're going to want to get a ticket on the Sunset Cruise. Both are very different. Both have their pros and cons, but you're going to want to do one or the other. So what is the Mailboat Cruise? Guys, pull up Google Maps and look at Casco Bay. Look at around Portland and look at Casco Bay. You're going to see a bunch of islands that are in Casco Bay. And what a mailboat cruise is you get on this mailboat real early in the morning, and they deliver mail to all these islands in Casco Bay. It's like seeing Casco Bay in a way you've never seen it before. Because you're just an observer while they're delivering the mail, they're going to stop at all these different islands, and you're going to be kind of just motoring around in Casco Bay, checking out all these different islands and the scenery you're going to see. You're going to see porpoises, you're going to see seals, you're going to see eagles. You may see wildlife like deer. I doubt you'll see moose because I don't think a lot of them are on those islands, but you're going to see scenery from a boat in Casco Bay. You might, if you go early enough, you might see a beautiful sunrise, although I think it's a little bit after the sunrise. You're going to have an experience. You're going to bring maybe a thermos of coffee, maybe a breakfast sandwich. I don't know if they serve food on those mailboat cruises now. Some in the past, I thought they did. I've been on a couple of them. But you want to go on a mailboat cruise, and you're going to want to check it out because there's no better way to actually sail. You're not actually sailing around. You're kind of on some type of motorized, I won't call it a tugboat. I'll send you the videos on it. But you're on a mailboat cruise, they're delivering mail, they're pulling into all these islands, they're dropping off mail, and you're just going to see some awesome scenery. You're going to explore Casco Bay, which is right outside of Portland. You're going to go up to Chebeague Island, Peaks Island, Long Island. There's a number of islands, and it is so picturesque and so beautiful. That's one option. So if you're going to do that in the morning, then you're going to get off. When you get off the boat, probably 10, 11, there's so many things to do in Portland. You got Exchange Street where you can go shopping. You got Commercial Street where you can go shopping. Obviously, you're going to want to eat in Portland, Maine. There's a number of restaurants you can eat at. There's not Pepperell Provisions. That's down here in Biddeford. There's Central Provisions. There's Boone's Restaurant. There's there's Street and Company. There's Portland Sea Grill. There's all these different shops, restaurants you can eat at. You're going to want to get a lobster sandwich or a lobster roll, especially if you like lobster. Portland's a place to get a lobster rolls. You can get a single or double. They're not cheap this time of year. I think a single is going to go for like $30. A double is going to go for $38. Most of it's with mayonnaise, a little lettuce, and a little garnish. You can have it made however you want. There's lobster trucks right outside of DeMillo's Floating Restaurant where you can order a lobster roll, but you're definitely going to want a lobster roll. If you want something a little bit more heavy or a little bit more, you don't like lobster, you want something else, like any of those restaurants you can go to. I mean, there is no shortage, guys, of places to eat in Portland, Maine. The amount of restaurants per square capita in Portland, Maine. Again, I heard a rumor, it's like it was second behind what San Francisco used to be. I get San Francisco's not there now because of all the homeless and stuff, but it rivals any major city in this country in terms of restaurants. And obviously there's a seafood slant to it because it's right on the ocean, but there's all kinds of different cuisines you can have: Italian, Mexican, seafood, whatever. There's all this different types of cuisines. Now, if you don't go on the Mailboat cruise, but you want to go on a sunset cruise, there's also another experience. You're not going to see all the islands like you would on a Mailboat cruise. You can bring your own food. You can bring your own, probably it's going to be a dinner or supper, wherever you're from. I call it dinner, which is not lunch, but it's, you're one of the two. But you can bring your own beverages, but you're going to be on a sunset cruise. And that cruise is just going to kind of tool around in Casco Bay, and you're going to see some islands. Again, you're going to see some aquatic life, you're going to see some birds, you're going to see all that kind of stuff, but you're actually going to see the sunset down over the bay, and that in itself is just, you want to talk about calendars and pictures that are in calendars, that is going to be a picture on a calendar. You won't forget it. Definitely bring your camera, definitely put it on video mode, definitely bring if you have your iPhone or whatever, or phone, you're going to want to take pictures. But a sunset cruise is just another example of something you can do one day in Maine. Obviously, if it's a sunset cruise, you're going to do something else during the day, like some of those things I talked about. There's no shortage of things to do in Portland, Maine in the summertime. My only request is you're gonna want to get there probably 10 o'clock, no later than 11 o'clock in the morning. The parking garages do fill up. You're going to want to get in a parking garage, and then you'll have the city to yourself for a good, depends if it's a Mailboat cruise, you're going to want to get there real early. But if it's a sunset cruise, again, 10 or 11, the city's your oyster. You'll have all kinds of things to do. You won't be bored. I can guarantee you after either one of those, you're going to be tired, and that's going to be your day because you want to head back, relax, wherever you're staying, relax for the evening, because tomorrow we got another thing to go on in. So first day, weather's nice. I'm not saying do it the first day. I would, but it depends on the weather. You definitely want to have a beautiful weather. It's generally beautiful this time of the year. There's generally, you might have a rain shower or a cloudy day here or there, but for the most part in August, it's the most beautiful time up here in Maine in terms of weather, and you'll really enjoy that experience. Okay, day one. Day two, again, I'm going to keep on the beach theme. And I'm not saying you got to do this in order again. I'm just giving you some ideas. You're going to want to go down to the Canadian tourist capital of the world. This is where all the Canadians come in the summertime. You want to head over to Old Orchard Beach, Maine. Old Orchard Beach sits between Scarborough and Saco. It's got a pier. It's got an amusement park. It's got all kinds of food, from the famous pier fries to lobster rolls to, you can go up on the pier and have all kinds of food. There's bars, there's nightclubs. Depends if it's family friendly or not. If you got young kids, you're going to want to go during the day. There's arcades, there's amusement, like I said, there's roller coasters, all types of rides, cotton candy, fried dough, all that stuff is in Old Orchard Beach. And you got the beach right there. You can hang out on the beach for a little bit, but you can explore Old Orchard Beach for the day, either with friends or family. You'll have a good time. There'll be no shortage of places to eat. It can be a little bit more relaxing because you can actually hang on the beach and maybe take a nap. Make sure you bring an umbrella or something to cover yourself from the sun if you're fair skinned like me, because you will burn. I just went in the ocean yesterday. It was pretty warm. Now, my perspective of warm is probably different than yours. It was probably 68 degrees. To me, that's warm. I'm sure some of you guys in the South are used to jumping in 90-degree bath water and bringing a bar of soap. That's not me. I want to be refreshed. go in the water. It'll be well worth it. Great time. Old Orchard Beach is definitely something you want to do on day 2. You can make it a day of it. There's also things you do. You got putt golf. There's no shortage of things to do on Old Orchard Beach for a day. You could probably spend 2 or 3 days in Old Orchard Beach, but in a day you're gonna get most of it in, and you'll be good to go on that perspective. Third day. Not saying it out again, but in day 3, you're going to want to drive up to Byron, Maine, Byron, and go to Coos Canyon. So Coos Canyon is kind of the glaciers and stuff, kind of carved out this canyon right down through Byron, Maine. It's great for swimming. It's great for spending time in the water. You can have these little cliffs that you can jump off, not high, 5, 10, 15 feet. Your kids will love it. Or your friends will love it. You can bring some beverages. I'm not telling you what type of beverages to bring. Just bring some beverages. You know what I mean by that. And the really good thing about Coos Canyon is you can pan for gold. And just recently, somebody got a nugget. I don't know, but it was worth, what I heard was whatever the price of gold is they got a nugget. And that nugget returned them like $28,000. So you can pan for gold down there. They have it set up. You can get these little panning things. And you might find a little bit of gold here and there, but you can pan for gold. You might get lucky and get a nugget like this person I heard about got it was probably last year this time. It was definitely in the summertime. I haven't heard anything this year, but Coos Canyon guarantees you'll get some gold. It just, you might get little speckles or whatever, but you can pan for gold in Coos Canyon. Awesome. It takes about an hour, hour and a half to get there from, I'm going to say where you're at in Portland or somewhere on the coast. It's a pretty drive. You're going to get there. You're going to spend time in the water, bring your bathing suit, bring some food, bring a lunch. Obviously, there is some smaller places to eat around there, but you're going to make a day of it, especially if you're kids. You're going to relax in the water. This time of the year, the water's running pretty good, but it's pretty warm. It's not like the ocean is warmer than that. But Coos Canyon is definitely, COOS is definitely a place you're going to want to visit. Again, it's going to take you about a day. You're going to spend an hour and a half getting up there, an hour and a half getting back. Depends on where you're living or staying, that is. So there's 3 hours right there. You're going to spend probably 4 or 5 hours at Coos Canyon, maybe 6. You're going to make a day of it. You're going to love it. Again, bring your camera. Make sure you have waterproof stuff. Make sure you bring your sunscreen. But you're going to love hanging out at Coos Canyon and enjoying some of that water. All right. One of these days, in this 10 days, I'm going to have you leave the state of Maine. You're going to want to make sure it's one of those most picturesque days you've ever seen. Not a cloud in the sky, bright, beautiful clouds, no clouds, bright, beautiful sky. Because what you're going to want to do is you're going to go on about a 4-hour drive and you're going to head up to Mount Washington. So you're going to leave Maine, you're going to enter New Hampshire, and you're going to kind of be up in kind of Mount Washington, Vermont, northern New Hampshire area, and you can drive up Mount Washington. Now, that being said, if you're afraid of heights, you don't want to drive it. If you're driving and you're afraid of heights, you don't want to drive it. Because as you're driving up that mountain, you're pretty close to the edge. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people do this every summer up the car, but you're pretty close to the edge, and you're like, "Ooh, I hope I didn't go off the edge," because it wouldn't be pretty if you did. They have railings and stuff. There's some parts of the road that's dirt that they're constructing, but you can get up there. It is 2 lanes, but your car's you're gonna need a good car, because coming down, you're gonna want to make sure your brakes work, because you're gonna be using those brakes all the way down. They actually have pull-offs to let your brakes rest, because if you don't have a car that you can manually downshift into a low gear and let the engine kind of slow you down, you're going to want to pull over a few times. But guys, when you get to the top of Mount Washington, and again, it's going to be a beautiful day. You're going to be able to see for miles. You're going to be able to see the ocean, which is looking past New Hampshire, looking past Maine into ocean. You're going to be able to see the ocean. You're going to be able to see all around. It's like, Mount Washington is over a mile in the air. It is actually the most extreme mountain in terms of weather in the winter. Look this up, guys. I mean, I think it has a record wind and snow totals. I mean, like feet and feet, 10, 20 feet of snow, and the winds up there. You definitely don't want to go visit that in the wintertime. But drive up Mount Washington. When you get back down, you get a sticker says this car drive Mount Washington. It's pretty cool. You might see some of that as you're visiting Maine. You might see it on some bumpers. Now, if you are afraid of heights and you don't want to drive it, you can actually buy a ticket and go up the Cog Railway. Now, the Cog Railway is nothing more than a train. They built a train with tracks, and it takes you right up the side of the mountain. Again, to me, that's kind of scary too. You know, I'm not afraid of heights, but you're not in control. But you don't have to worry about it. They do it all the time. But you're sitting in this rail car, a bunch of rail cars, and you're going up the side of this mountain, and it's a pretty big drop off. But again, the pictures are phenomenal. The views are phenomenal. Definitely something you want to do. Drive to Mount Washington. It's gonna take all day. When you get back, you can drive down into North Conway, New Hampshire, right before you come into Maine, right before you come into Freiburg. Again, another place that's got shops, all kinds of places to eat, all kinds of food places tucked in between the mountains. It's a beautiful area. Maybe you've already been there, maybe you haven't. I get it. We're not in Maine right now. We just left Maine. We're going to go see Mount Washington. But while you're here, you definitely want to check out Mount Washington because, again, bring your camera. These are what go on calendars. You're going to love the view. Make sure it's a beautiful day, though, because if you get up there and it's all cloudy, you're not going to be able to see much. So make sure that's one of your stipulations when you're heading up to Mount Washington. All right. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Day 5. You're going to want to go whale watching. Now, you can go whale watching out of Portland or out of Kennebunkport, but guaranteed to see whales. And some of these whales are some pretty big whales. You'll see breaches. You'll see how they come up and the tail comes down. It's like probably a 3 to 4 hour trip between getting out there and getting back. You're definitely going to see whales. There's going to be snacks and stuff to eat on the whale watching tour on the boat. You'll be there with a lot of other people. If you get on the upper decks and you see some of these whales breaching and stuff, it's awesome. It's majestical. And maybe you've been on whale watching tours before. Maybe you haven't. Pretty popular here in Maine, especially in southern Maine, off the coast. You're going to go out maybe 20, 25 miles off the coast, and you're going to see some of these big, massive creatures, especially in the summertime. I guess they come up here for a reason, but you're going to see these whales. You're going to see dolphins. I guess now you're starting to see some sharks, although I haven't seen any lately, but there has been reporting of sharks up in these neck of the woods. But go on a whale watching tour. You won't regret it. You're going to take some pictures. You're going to love it. Definitely do it. If you go out of Portland, obviously, when you get out off the whale watching tour, you're going to be able to shop or eat or whatever before you head back to wherever you're staying. Same with Kennebunkport, big tourist town in the summertime. No shortage of food places, no shortage of places to eat. You're going to need some money, though, because both those towns are expensive to eat in. Depends on how many people are with you. But again, you go on a whale watching tour either out of Portland or out of Kennebunkport, and you're going to see some majestical animals. Guaranteed you're going to see whales. And then spend some time in either one of those two cities, just shopping around, walking around, having something to eat, checking out some of the other sites. Go on a whale watching tour. All right. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Day 6. Now, again, not in any order. You're gonna be a little tired from these 5 days of activities. So what I would recommend you do is, again, make sure it's a sunny day. It should be if you come in August. You're gonna want to drive up to Freiburg, Maine, which is just outside of North Conway, and you're gonna want to rent some tubes, and you're gonna want to go tubing down the river. So very relaxing. A lot of people do it. It's a big thing up here. Sometimes the water's like 2 feet deep. Sometimes it's 20 feet deep. It's got a little bit of a current, but they rent you all these tubes. You don't have to bring anything. Just bring yourself. Maybe some beverages, something that's waterproof. Bring your camera, bring all that stuff. Rent some tubes, get in the water, and it's just gonna slowly trickle down the river. My wife counts it to like in Texas, I guess they call them the lazy rivers, where you can rent a tube and go down a lazy river. Well, this is actually a river. It's wildlife, right? So you're just going down the river tubing. If you're really courageous, and I've done this a bunch of times, is you can make it a 2-day trip where you get down, you're still tubing down the river. You're going to get out around supper time or dinner time, depends on what you call it in your neck of the woods. And you can actually tent right there on the banks or up off the bank a little bit, have a fire or whatever with a bunch of friends and family. Tubing down the river is a big thing. Got to be careful of one thing, and I'm going to shout out to my friends in Massachusetts, but I'm going to call them this, the mass holes. Some of them will get these big super soakers, and they'll be on both sides of the riverbanks. And when you're coming through, they're going to spray you. You're going to get pretty wet. So you're going to want to do that on a warm day, right? Right now it's going to be about 85. Today it's August 23rd. Be a good day to go tubing. It's not a cloud in the sky. Here I am stuck in the basement with a black background. Wouldn't know it, but yeah, you're gonna want to go tubing down the river. Good time, family friendly. Kids are gonna love it. There's all kinds of things to do. You know, if you do the overnight thing, you're gonna start in Friday. You're gonna get on Brownfield. If you just do the 1 day thing, I think it's quite a bit shorter. But if you do the whole thing, it's like a 25-mile trip. And the current isn't zipping, it's pretty slow. You're just kind of relaxing, hanging on a tube. You can dip over, you can pull over to the side, walk around in the river a little bit. It's not really, it's kind of river, it's kind of a brook, it's kind of a stream. It's all in between, but it's a Saco River that you're going to go tubing down. I'll shoot you some information in my comments down below in the video. All right. We talked about whale watching, Mount Washington, Coos Canyon, Orchard Beach, Casco Bay Cruise lines, tubing down the river. You're going to want to go back to Portland. You're going to want to go back to that Casco Bay lines, and you're going to want to probably go to Peaks Island. Now, Peaks Island is actually a part of Portland. It sits right across from Portland, but it's in Casco Bay. You can't drive there. You have to take a ferry. If you're lucky enough to get there early enough, you can rent a golf cart. You can explore the island. There's places to eat on the island. You can hang on the beach. But a lot of people go to Peaks Island for the sea glass. So you're gonna go there, and you're gonna wanna bring some shoes that can get wet a little bit. But you're gonna walk along the banks and the inlets, and you're gonna want to look for sea glass. And if you like that kind of stuff, you might find some interesting sea glass from hundreds of years ago. It all depends on the colors, I guess, the reds, the blues. I'm not a sea glass guy, but I know people that do. You can also go rock hounding, I think, is a new thing, where you can look at different kind of rocks. Not of interest to me, but sea glass kind of cool. You might find some really spectacular glass. Some of it's worth some money if you can find the right traders and stuff, but sea glass. Guys, I apologize. If you hear my dogs barking right now, I'm going to shoot them, because every time the mailman comes, my dogs bark. And I've trained them and trained them and trained them, but it doesn't stop. They just keep barking. And I'm guessing FedEx is out front, which is why my dogs are yapping. So if you hear that in the background, apologize. I got two wild, like crazy dogs that just, any noise you hear, they bark. Sea glass. All right. What are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I keep on losing count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Here's something a little off the beaten path, a little different than the whole ocean vibe or the water vibe. You're going to want to take a trip to Norland, Norlands. It's an historical kind of area in Maine. And you're going to go up there. It's in Livermore, which is kind of like past Lewiston, Auburn. Again, about an hour and a half trip. And you're going to come into this kind of historically preserved plantation, if you will. I'll send you the links in the email, in the YouTube video as well. But it's going to show what it looked like to live in the 1800s. From being in a school, you can actually go up there and pretend you're a student for the day, and you're going to be in this one classroom, and they're going to teach you how things were taught back then. Or you can be on a farm, right? So how the farm worked back in the day. I can remember as a kid, in elementary school, I think it was in Young or Burns School. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was in 4th or 5th grade. You go on a field trip. At least this is back in the day. I don't know if they do anymore. You go on the field trip up there. And we did it in the fall when they were tapping the trees no, it was in the spring actually, when they were tapping the trees for maple syrup and stuff. And you can either be on a farm, or you can be in a school. It's pretty cool how they lived up there. Obviously, there's no power, electricity, or at least it wasn't there. They just showed how you lived back in that day. It's kind of like being a Quaker, or being what's those guys in Pennsylvania that they ride you always see them in a horse and buggy. God, you know what sucks about being 55? You start forgetting things. I thought I had Alzheimer's, but people like, if you know that you're forgetting stuff, you don't have Alzheimer's. This is when you don't know that you forgot stuff that you did. So, but anyways, the Amish, yeah, I knew it come to me. Kind of like being in Amish world, but they built a historical society kind of about it. You can learn about the history, learn about how people lived in Maine back then, and all that stuff. Pretty cool, inexpensive adventure. Kind of bringing back history. It's definitely can be an all-day thing. There's plenty of things to do. It's a slower pace, right? You're going to learn about, again, the history. You're going to learn about what's going on up in how Maine was in the early 1800s and no electricity and all that stuff. And I just think, connecting especially kids with kind of that world and understanding, all these kids today are stuck on iPods and iPads and iPhones and, they got to have data and technology in front of them constantly, get rid of all that stuff. Go up there and say, hey, imagine if you lived back in this day, how lucky you have it. So the next time you're going to tell your kid he can't have his iPad because he's punished, make him or her think about the time he went to Norland and realized what happened before there was iPads and computers and all that. But pretty cool stuff to visit, stuff to learn, a lot of interesting things that you might not know up there, or wouldn't even thought of how they lived and how they did things. Really intriguing. At least I thought it was. Definitely worth the drive. Again, it's going to be an all-day thing. It's going to take you 3 hours to get up there and back. You're going to spend probably 2 or 3 hours up there, maybe 4. On the way back, again, you're going to kind of be driving through Lewiston, Auburn, which is a kind of older mill town. They're kind of doing some revitalization, but you're going to be driving through Lewiston, Auburn. Plenty of places you can actually further come down. There'll be no places to stop, even if you grab one of those Maine Italians. I'll do a video on what a Maine Italian is. I just did a blog on it on Facebook, and there was this big debate on the best Italians in Maine and who makes them. But grab an Italian or have lunch, grab whatever. So that's I think we're on day 8. All right, day 9, if you're gonna come to Maine, you gotta go to LL Beans. So most people know what LL Beans is. Sorry, I had a scratch there. LL Beans was famous for their bean boot, but it's gone way beyond that. LL Beans is in Freeport, Maine. I actually call Freeport Beanport because LL Beans really put Freeport on the map. When LL Beans started growing and getting bigger and building more stores and more distribution outlets and more outlet stores, all these other kind of companies came, all these other outlet stores came, and it's an outlet kind of place now outside of LL Bean. Breweries, places to eat, all these outlet shops. You got LL Bean, which is going to take you a couple hours just to go through the different. You got a kids shop. You got the big LL Bean store. You got a bunch of other stores. The fishing, the hunting, the shooting, all that stuff is up in LL Bean. The clothes. Camping gear, but it's a pretty cool experience. You want to go to LL Beans, don't want to miss it. You could save that for a cloudy day or a rainy day if there is one, or a cooler day, because you're going to be inside most of the time, but you are going to be walking the streets of Freeport. It's all kind of condensed right in like a mile radius or mile circumference, where you got a brewery, you got places to eat, you got LL Beans, you got all these other outlet stores up there, but you're gonna want to go to LL Beans. You're gonna want to check it out. From Portland to Freeport, it's about 40, maybe 35 minutes north. Again, look at Google Maps. It's easy to get to. Parking's going to be a little tough, so you're going to want to, parking. You might have to park a little bit away and take a train, a little trolley in, or walk, or Uber, or whatever. But if you can get lucky, you can get into Freeport pretty easy, and you can park right there in one of LL Bean's parking lots. They do have massive, humongous parking lots and places to park, but it's, again, a lot of little, very popular place, not only for people that are visiting and just seeing it, but for the locals. A lot of people shop at LL Beans for their outdoor gear. Yeah, you're going to want to go to LL Bean up in Freeport, which I call Beanport. Have fun up there. It's going to be an all-day experience, much like being in Portland, but on a much smaller scale. You're definitely going to want to go to LL Beans. All right, guys, that's day 9. Day 10, you're going to head out of Portland up 302 up to Naples, Maine. And in Naples, Maine, there's a causeway. It's a little causeway that connects one side of a lake to another. And they have the Songo River Queen. It's a big lake kind of around the mountains. There's some foodery places right there to eat. There's a lot of things going on in Naples in the summertime, but you're gonna want to get a ticket on the Songo River Queen. It's an old what do you call them? Not steam, but what was those boats that have the big flywheels in the back? You're gonna want to go on the Songo River Queen, and you're gonna want to tour on there, and they'll be playing live music. There'll probably be a band on there. You're gonna have a few beverages. You're gonna be touring around on the Songo River Queen, around on this big lake, looking at the views, looking at the different houses that are on the lake. You're gonna have a blast. Again, I think it's a 2 hour ride trip around there on the Songo River Queen. And then you're going to get off. You're going to spend some time in Naples. Naples is about an hour outside of Portland, so kind of a slower paced day, but you're going to have fun on the Songo River Queen. You're going to enjoy it up there. It's kind of away from the coast, not as beaten path, but you're going to definitely enjoy hanging out there, hanging on the Songo River Queen, listen to some probably live band on there. My wife used to have a friend that did Girls Just Want to Have Fun. It was an 80s tribute band, so it was pretty fun. I don't think she does it anymore, but there's definitely things going on Songo River Queen, and you're going to love it. Naples, Maine, not Florida, about an hour west of Portland. Lots of good times, lots of fun. You're going to see some pretty beautiful houses that sit on this lake. You're going to see some wildlife. You're going to have a good time. So that's, in a nutshell, guys, that's 10 things to do in 10 days. If you want to know more information, you say you're going to come up here for a month, I could give you something to do every day for a month. There's no shortage of things, guys, to do. I mean, I haven't even talked about Sebago Lake, the Cliff Walk, what else I haven't talked about going down to Kennebunk Port. I did talk about the whale watching, but hanging out in Kennebunk Port and tours. You can go to Bush Compound, Walker's Island, Walker's Point. I didn't even talk about the shops down in Kittery, the huge, much bigger than LO Bean, the outlet shops. What else have I talked? I haven't talked about some of the other places. I haven't even talked about going up to Bar Harbor, which a lot of people want to do. Drive up to Bar Harbor, get there on top of Mount Desert Island, look over one of the most tourist attractive video produced photos that you'll ever see. I didn't even talk about going up to Bar Harbor. I didn't even talk about some of the lighthouses that you can see. There's so many things to do, guys, but I kind of boiled it down in 10 days. If you want other things to do other than that, just drop me a line. Send me a message and down below in the comment section, and I can give you some other ideas to do. But guys, this is kind of 10 things to do in Maine in the summertime. I'll do another one of 10 things to do in Maine in the fall time, 10 things to do in Maine in the wintertime. Some of them are very unique. They're very different. Spring I leave out. It's generally wet. You're coming out of winter. It's wet. It's muddy. There is definitely some things to do in the springtime. If you got four-wheelers or you got these big trucks that love to go mudding, there's definitely things to do in the springtime, but spring out of the 4 seasons that we have up here is my least favorite, only because it's wet and muddy, and everything's blooming. So if you have allergies, I have allergies to hay fever, I think it is, so you might have some allergy issues, but tons of things to do in Maine, guys. Thanks for watching the channel. Thanks for watching this video. Drop some comments if you want more information. I hope this was helpful for you guys. And subscribe. You're gonna learn more about living in Maine. I'm gonna do more cities, what it's like to live up here. Again, my whole purpose, my team and I's whole purpose is just to educate you on everything that Maine has to offer and why you might want to be considered to live in Maine, become a new Mainer. The quality of life, the safety of the state itself, the place, the things to do, specifically Southern Maine. One day I'll do something on Northern Maine. There's definitely less to do in Northern Maine, but it's still a really interesting state and tons of beauty and natural wildlife. So if you like that stuff, if you want to look at sky rises all day and all that stuff, well then don't come to Maine, because you're not going to see that. If you want a lot of big bands and you want to go to a lot of large musicals and all that stuff like that, don't come to Maine, because that's not Maine. Maine is more about outdoor living, being one with nature, exploring the beauty, picturesque parts of the state, and understanding some of the things to do in the state. That's what Maine is about. And I just saw a video the other day. I'm going to leave it with this. This guy was talking about New England and how Boston is the mother and Massachusetts is the father. And then he was talking about the other states, and he was like, New Hampshire's the bigger brother, but he never gets any attention. Rhode Island's the smaller brother. He gets all the attention because Massachusetts is trying to give him all kinds of things. Connecticut is like the crazy aunt that you don't want to visit, but she's got a lot of money, so you might want to go down there one time. Vermont is like the crazy sister that's got all this. You're gonna, whoa, man, you're gonna be smoking a lot of grass and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm trying to be politically incorrect. Just Connecticut's very liberal, if you will, and they kind of have a different way of life. Not Connecticut, excuse me, Vermont. And then he talked about Maine. Maine's the crazy uncle. Place you want to visit, you want to do all these crazy things. You can't do it in Boston because you just don't have the stuff around, but it's a different place you want to be, and it's so much fun, and you got to go to Maine because there's so many things to do. It's like the crazy uncle, but you might not want to live there, even though he's from Massachusetts, and I don't want to live in Massachusetts. You do want to live here, but the crazy uncle, all kinds of cool things to do. You want to visit every time you go up there because you're just going to have so much fun. That's Maine in a nutshell, obviously from a Massholes perspective. But there's a reason why there's a lot of Massholes up here too. So forgive me if you're from Massachusetts. I love y'all. Maine is part of Massachusetts, or was. We succeeded in 1820, so I'll give you that. Southern Maine, a lot of people call it Northern Massachusetts because what's going on in here and the people moving here and the industry and the housing and all that. But yeah, so take it for what it's worth. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I love Massachusetts, love going down to Fenway Park, love taking the train, love walking around Boston. I just love it. I love New England in general. There's a lot of things to do. You get Mystic Aquarium down in Connecticut. You get the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Vermont, I can take it or leave it. You got Ben and Jerry's, though, if you like ice cream. Connecticut, my brother lives down there. You got casinos, pretty good time if you like going to the casinos. But yeah, so guys, I've been rambling. Hope this video was helpful. I'll talk to you soon, and until next time, stay safe, have fun, make every day count, and you guys have a blast. Talk to you soon. Over and out. Bye-bye.